Awesome. Dane, welcome, man, and welcome everybody, all of our listeners. Latest episode of Retention Chronicles. This one's been a long time coming. Dane Baker, CEO of Ecocart, is joining us today. We're very lucky to have him. I think a few of our guests who have come on have been similar, but Dane, you were one of the top first 3 or 4 people, partners, so to speak, that I met during my when I started at Malomo, because you and I met at Shop Talk in Vegas a year and a half ago now. So the last Shop Talk, not the one this year, and that was my second week on the job. So you welcomed me with open arms into the industry, into the ecosystem, and I always appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Love to hear it, man. Pumped to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We've got a ton to talk about today, so we'll jump right in. Before we get to the shop talk, we like to ask our guests about 1 or 2 things that you're excited about in your personal life.
Ooh, personal life. Yeah, great. So let's see. I just bought a house. A lot of things, actually. Just bought a house, just got engaged, and planning a wedding in 12 months from now. So like a lot's personally happening right now. So it's good. Life is good.
Major congrats. Is first question. Yeah. Are you a first-time homeowner?
Yes, I am. Yeah, this is the first of mine. Yeah.
And you're in LA, is that right?
Yeah, a little north, Ventura County, but yeah,
okay,
LA
that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
So I think I was just complaining about this to somebody at Malomo last week during our company-wide offsite.
Might have been me, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I'm in the midst of moving, which I just told Dane about before.
Okay. Yeah. Moving sucks, obviously. Pretty much the worst thing that we all have to do every now and then. But Dane, I hate to tell you this, home ownership is brutal sometimes.
It is. It seems as though as soon as you take over the home and you own it for the first time, everything goes wrong. Like it 100%. Seems when you're renting, nothing goes wrong ever. It's like easy, and then all of a sudden you're a homeowner and everything breaks.
I will say I've rented homes, and just because literally this morning I was dealing with some stuff. Yeah, renting it's not treating us well, at least. So maybe I'll get the opposite of that, where home ownership, when I finally get there, will go smoothly. From other friends, I've heard the same narrative. But also, Dane, congrats on getting engaged and planning a wedding. How exciting. And getting a home. But
fun stuff. Life is good. Thank you.
Love it.
Do you know where you're gonna do the wedding yet? LA?
Yeah, it's gonna be here in locally. So like it's in Westlake is the city name. So it's like all of our family is local. So it's great to just keep it local.
Amazing, man. Congrats. I'm pretty much the only person I know who complains about home ownership as much as I do. So probably a me problem. I'm the common denominator. I'm sure it will all go very well for you.
Thank you. Let's hope.
Also, before I forget, I'm actually flying to LA tomorrow to meet Brandon from Electric and some of his buddies for a long weekend. So I will hit you up, man. Maybe we can grab a drink or a bite or something.
That sounds like a plan. Do it, man. Let me know.
I'm making a note right now.
Love it.
So with that said, again, founder of Ecocart, would love to get sort of the career background and what led you to start the company. And then once we get there, we'll obviously bring the audience up to date about what's going on at Ecocart today.
Love it. Okay. So I'll kind of speed through it quickly. So multi-time founder, started a few companies in the past. They've all have had a similar thread of trying to make the world a better place in some way, shape, or form. The last company that I started was an online peer-to-peer rental marketplace business. So think like Airbnb, but for surfboards, kayaks, snowboards, etc. And we started that business because we thought that renting versus consumption was a greater benefit for the environment if we were able to scale the operation. That was the thought. Over time, it became very complicated and very expensive to maintain that same sustainability focused ethos that we started the business with. We tried everything. We tried to buy offsets We tried to hire consultants. It was very complicated, very expensive. It got to the point where we had to either effectively choose growth or profitability, growth or sustainability. And that was something we didn't really want to have to choose between. So we sold that company and started Ecocart based off of this opportunity, off of this idea, off this problem that we lived ourselves. And our mission at Ecocart is to make the fight against climate change easy, affordable, and accessible so that everyone can do their part. And today we power a carbon neutral shopping experience for over 2,000 brands, all different shapes and sizes, brands all the way from Walmart to, Cotopaxi and APL and Supergoop, and many, many more. So we're thrilled to power this movement. We believe what we're building is becoming ubiquitous in the e-commerce landscape. And in 5 years from now, us in this room won't be able to go through a checkout experience and not have an option to make our purchase carbon neutral. So we're really excited to be able to power this movement and, in a world where this is sort of, becoming ubiquitous.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You did definitely speed through that, but incredible career to date. And obviously Ecocart, I think most of our listeners will be very familiar, kind of speaks for itself what you guys have done there, which is incredible. Obviously want to get a little more into that. First though, the previous startup you mentioned, I'm dropping one in the chat. I'm curious how similar they are. There's a startup in Indy called Quip2 that I know the founders of, and you basically described their business model, I think, like Airbnb for outdoor equipment rentals, basically. Yeah. So I'll have to share this episode with them after so that they can hear. I think they're going through some of those same growing pains right now. But yeah, so on the Ecocart front, super, super awesome. What you're trying to do there. I'd love to listen or dive a little bit deeper into like what the business model is. And, to me, based on what I understand about it, it does seem like one of those things. It's a no-brainer, right? Like you just mentioned ubiquity. Why wouldn't, what's the common feedback? Why doesn't every brand have this as an option? Is there like a price barrier? Is there an implementation barrier? Is it a lack of awareness? Can you sort of talk about that and how we overcome it, because it is such an important problem?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'm really glad you asked. I think really it's an educational barrier at this moment, right? Like, for example, most of our, it's really interesting nuance, right? Because normally the challenge of an e-commerce software company in the other industry, out in the industry, is really to differentiate from all of the other tools that exist in the space that are for a similar reason, basically to, acquire more customers or retain your customers, right? And there's a lot of similarities between tools in the industry. And so really the challenge and the opportunity is to just differentiate from the other tools. For us, it's a very different challenge. For us, it's actually educating that a solution like this exists in the marketplace. And then two, that educating that a solution like this and building a shopping experience that's centered around a sustainability message can be incredible for business and actually help drive growth, in many cases, even profitability for a brand. Like there's a lot of incredible business benefits. So for us, it's an educational hurdle. Yeah. But I like to say we never hear no. We always hear, later, like when, yes, I'd love to get to this. It's just a matter of, I have 15 other things on my priority list, right? And for us, that's really where our opportunity exists, to educate these brands on how Ecocart can actually drive business growth. And that is, when you put it into that context, it automatically becomes a top priority for a brand.
Yeah. That makes sense. So with that, do you see like conversion rates increase sometimes as a result of having Ecocart in, as part of the buying experience?
We do. We have probably dozens of case studies at this point that show, improved conversion rates, improved repurchase rates on that cohort of consumers that align with that mission. And so you start to see improved LTV over time for a specific cohort of consumers that are introduced to the Ecocart option. So there's a whole host of incredible business benefits from some top tier brands that other brands know and love and trust that prove this value in black and white.
Right. Right. No, I think that, I can see how that would drive, like I said, conversion rates up for sure, especially for those more eco-conscious buyers.
Exactly. I mean, even just thinking about it, right? Like what is the goal here, right? It's to drive customer loyalty and love, especially at the most sensitive and important part of the shopping journey, which is the checkout experience, right? If you successfully do that, if you successfully align your shopper's mission with yours as a brand at that magical moment, there can be incredible results, right? Consumers are more willing to convert on that purchase at that moment because they know that their environmental impact can be mitigated. They also are willing to come back and repurchase multiple times thereafterwards because they know that that brand stands for something that they care about. And so it's that kind of a mission and ethos alignment at that magical moment of the shopping experience that just creates incredible value.
Absolutely. I definitely want to, I think that speaks very well to the acquisition side. And I know there are retention sort of aspects to this as well. So I definitely want to dive into that. But before we get there, I'd love to just understand a little bit better how it is that you accomplish this huge mission of, carbon offset. From a technical perspective, what is it that Ecocart is doing that allows for brands to be more sustainable?
Yeah. So what Ecocart does, kind of in a nutshell, is we calculate the carbon footprint of a purchase by looking at how far that order is traveling, how much that order weighs, the contents of that order, what specifically is being purchased, the category of those items. All of these factors go into effectively an algorithm that spits out a dollar amount that a consumer can be offered at the point of purchase and to make that purchase carbon neutral. And with that dollar amount that the consumer decides to contribute, we are funding a certified carbon offset project. And a certified carbon offset project can be, anything from tree planting to wind farm building to sustainable agriculture to direct air capture. There's a whole host of different project types that we're funding that all equate to 1 ton of CO2 being removed from the atmosphere, right? So that is kind of the quantifiable science behind it. Is every single project is removing 1 ton of CO2, and it's verifiable, it's certified. All these projects are, they're heavily vetted projects, and we're sort of hand selecting these projects to create a portfolio for our community. And we give this portfolio to our community of brands, and in some cases consumers, and they hand select which ones that most align with their brand, right? And so this is kind of the entire value of Ecocart, is everything from calculating that carbon footprint in real time to hand selecting a vetted portfolio of projects that a brand can use to bolster their brand and their messaging.
Got it. Okay. That's awesome. I don't think I knew for certain. I didn't know that the last part, right? Like, where does the money actually go and how do you choose those projects? I think it's super powerful that you kind of give that decision to the merchants and their customers as well. Cause I'm sure one option would be like, we just raise all the money and put it in whatever we want to sort of prioritize. But I think it's a great value add to be able to pick and choose on a merchant by merchant or customer by customer basis as well. And I'm sure that's another reason for, right, like the business impacts that you're providing beyond the environmental impacts.
That's exactly right. Yeah. A lot of it is just, how can we make the brand be a sustainability champion in the eyes of their consumers, right? That's kind of the key. And, everything from letting them choose a project that most aligns with them, to customizing that shopping experience to their specific brand, their brand colors, their brand font, their brand messaging. Everything that we're doing is in service of making that brand be a sustainability champion and making that very clear to their consumers.
Right.
That's
Um,
so cool.
Go
Can
ahead.
I have a question for you, Dane. So I love that you brought up like sometimes consumers are seeing the reports of what the projects are.
Yeah.
And that two-parter question. So is it like up to the brand that, oh, you can like show a consumer, this is the projects that you're like the additional dollar amount that you'd be paying, like that's what you can choose that project that it's going towards? Is that the brand who's making that call of like what you're surfacing?
Yeah, in many cases, yeah, that is the case. Some specific platforms and partners of ours are giving their customer that option. If they have an app, for example, right, where the consumer can actually go into the app, they can like choose their settings, right? And one of those settings would be like your default project that you want to fund. So there's different ways of doing it, but in the vast majority of cases, the brand is the one that is selecting that project.
Okay, and then that's awesome. Second parter, have you seen ever any brands that like match what their product is to like a certain project? So like say, I don't know, I didn't even think of an example of this, but say like you sell footwear and then I don't know, like you're planting trees along a hike, right? Like where there's some like symbiotic relationship there. Do you ever see like that level of intentionality with the brands that you're working with?
We certainly do. Yeah. And we actually encourage that level of intentionality, like you're mentioning, and just deliberateness, because there's such an opportunity, right? If you're tailoring the message and the action directly to that brand and that shopper and what they care about, there's so much power in that. So we see a lot of our brands that have that level of intentionality behind how they choose projects. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Because I imagine a lot of consumers, obviously, if they're shopping with a certain brand, then you're going to assume they're passionate, or at least someone that they know, if it's a gift, is passionate about whatever realm, whatever industry it falls in. So the symmetry there, if someone say wasn't going to opt in for a maybe more random or not as aligned carbon neutral project, then maybe that would be the trigger that someone would say, oh, like now this is more relatable to me. Now I want to fund this project, go with this option, use the tech that you all employ on a checkout page. So that's cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, exactly. You hit on an important point.
I'm curious, like overall, what percent of merchants would you say like care about the environment enough that they would actually, they would actually take the time to implement something like Ecocart, which I imagine is probably not super heavy on the implementation side, but still, you said, Dane, there's 15 projects going on at all times, and it does require some thought at least, right? And are there any particular verticals that you've seen recently do a much better job of, caring about the environment and employing tactics to decrease their footprint? Maybe some others who you wish might come along for the ride on this and could be doing a much better job. And ultimately, like, how do we evangelize this sort of opportunity for brands to do a better job here?
Yeah, a lot there. That's good. So let's see, I guess, firstly, we have to answer that, I guess, that first part of your question. Brands come to us for different reasons, right? Some brands come to us and say, hey, sustainability is within our ethos. It is why we started this company to begin with. We stand for it and are very clear about that message to our customers, and we want to do more. And so that's, some subset, right, of brands. I'd say the majority, right, that's probably a minority. The majority of brands come to us because they want to speak to their consumers in a way that is differentiated to all of the strategies and tactics they have tried previously. They want to be able to stand out to their customers. And, some really interesting tactics that we've done in the past involve running like a carbon neutral sale, for example, for a day or a week, in addition to, or in exchange for a 20% off sale, right? And there's some really interesting brand benefits that exist because of this differentiated tactic and strategy. And so a lot of brands come to us for that reason of we want to speak with our consumers in a way that drives growth that isn't played out already. And so that's kind of where we shine, right? And then vertical wise, I would say we have some incredible brands within probably 3 or 4 main verticals, right? So clothing and apparel with kind of a sub vertical of that of outdoor is key for us. And then of course, beauty and cosmetics is another big one, right? Third would be CPG in general, so food and bev brands. And then, lastly, I would say categories like baby are big for us as well, right? So those I'd say are probably our 4 most kind of adopted categories thus far, but we work with all different shapes and sizes of brand. I mean, we work with Walmart, for example, right? So there's not like that's a category in and of its own that so it's really sort of mass marketable, but those are kind of the most adopted categories that we have today.
Got it. Great answer. I just threw a ton at you. way to stick with me. On the Walmart piece, that's obviously super exciting. Congrats. So it's obviously not, a lot of the merchant or partners that we have on, merchants we have on are on Shopify or are built purposefully for Shopify. Sounds like you took a slightly different approach. Is there any limitations to like platforms you can support, types of merchants you can support beyond Shopify?
There's not actually. So we have, of course, a Shopify integration, like we're mentioning, but we also have a non-platform API that can integrate into any platform. And that was really much more of something that we developed only because there was such a strong market pull for that, right? I mean, when you have Walmart knocking at the door, you gotta make it work, right, in some capacity. And you gotta
answer.
Yeah, and we have the same sort of story that happens with tons of other brands and retailers that exist that are just of incredible size, right? We're about to launch with a really, really big one in the shoe category in the next couple of quarters. And a lot of these larger brands are just some of them are on other platforms, right? And we have to and want to be able to service those brands. Our mission is to offset, and our vision really is to offset all carbon emissions from consumer purchases on the internet, right? That's a very ambitious goal, and we have to get there by way of various kind of channels and have really strong channel penetration regardless of platform. So although most of our brands today are built on the Shopify ecosystem, we do have the capability of going beyond that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very cool. We have a similar sort of situation, like I said, purpose built for Shopify, but open API if any brand wants to connect outside, which nobody's really taken us up on much yet because open API doesn't mean that it's super easy or plug and play like it is on Shopify, but the opportunity is there. And I think to your point, when you have some of the biggest retailers in the world coming to you, like you'll go a bit above and beyond, I'm sure, to make that work. Yeah. Another question I had, and I think it's something that I've talked to you and maybe your partner team about as well, is like, obviously the cart is the most obvious use case, right? But like, where else should merchants be talking about, highlighting, giving opportunities for their customers to partake in their sustainability programs beyond just the cart? And what does that sort of look like from a use case perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. So maybe to helpfully give a little bit of historical context, my co-founder and I were inspired by brands like Patagonia and brands like Cotopaxi that speak about sustainability in almost every customer touch point. It's in the fabric of their brand, right? And that's obviously like the kind of North Star, right, in a lot of ways for sustainable brands. But there's a huge opportunity for brands of all shapes and sizes to talk about sustainability in nearly every customer touch point. And so, yes, Ecocart sort of core, cornerstone product is a carbon neutral checkout experience. we also encourage and offer solutions and features and product that decorates the entire shopping experience, right? And it's key to really lean into that. If you do so in an educational and transparent way, I think that's key. But doing so at nearly every customer touch point, all the way from pre-purchase to post-purchase, is key. And that's really where the brands that see the most value from this type of initiative in general, that's where they get the most value. Is there's a strong correlation between number of touch points and value that a brand receives with regard to, sustainable messaging. So yeah, I would say there's a huge opportunity, and many brands, even the ones that we work with in many cases, aren't leveraging it to its full potential because of just that nuance of thinking that just a carbon neutral checkout experience is enough. In a lot of cases, it is, and there is value there, and that'll keep them around. But there's just so much more, right? And that's where kind of the partnership value that Ecocart provides, the success managers that we provide to all of our brands at no cost. This is what kind of helps them charter a path towards sustainable messaging and kind of that North Star of what will drive the most value for our brands.
Right. Yeah. My wheels are spinning, and I know that I've talked about this before with you, but I think it's a no-brainer use case to partner up on some tracking pages, especially for our shared merchants, which I know we've got dozens of, I'm sure. And I love the use case of highlighting the sustainability program post-purchase in the tracking experience. The obvious use case is just, hey, did you know about our program? Like, here's what we're raising money for. Here's how we're offsetting. But we could even do more sophisticated stuff like segment the experience based on whether or not a customer paid extra for the program or the branded. And if they did, provide them a different experience. If they didn't, make sure that they're aware so that the next time they buy, they enroll, or whatever that you might have some additional ideas on top of that. But what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, love that. Such a great opportunity. I mean, again, empowering brands to speak about their sustainability initiatives in any touch point is just provides such a huge opportunity, right? It's there's a very, very strong and growing population of consumers that deeply care about how their individual actions impact the environment at large, and purchasing decisions are actually made because of this affinity, right? And so given that, there's just such a huge opportunity to increase the number of places where you talk about that to your consumers, if done in the right way, leaning into education and transparency. So absolutely, I think that's a fantastic idea. Tracking page, and then we can obviously supplement that with everything pre-purchase, and just that's a wonderful use case right there.
Yes.
I also know, and now you got my wheels spinning. So say in that example with someone segments an experience, Dane, have you ever seen so you segment post-purchase communications, and then say someone chose to go with the carbon neutral offset, then they get added, or they can sign up for a loyalty program in which they get points back on their account or anything like that? Because I feel like that, while I was thinking, I feel like whenever I see carbon neutral offset, I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of feel obligated because they gave me the choice to make that choice and go with that option. So I wonder if there's any play with oh, the more times you do it, it just reinforces the flywheel. And if you've seen any use cases with that.
Totally. Yeah. Loyalty is I'm glad you asked that. Loyalty is a big use case and kind of gold star use case in many cases, because it's if you can talk to that consumer in an individualized way and give them rewards for taking an action, and if that action is making your order carbon neutral, for example, there's a lot of power in that, right? And so we partner with a bunch of different loyalty programs, folks like Loyalty Lion and Yotpo and many more, to kind of power this at scale. And our brands love it, right? Because it's an opportunity for them to speak about their sustainability initiatives in more places, but specifically for that subset of shoppers that are most loyal to the brand. And our sort of product inherently, and just driving sustainable messaging in general, leans into building customer loyalty and love. And if you work that into a loyalty program, it's just it's probably the best possible, mix and partnership that you can have.
Yeah. Are there any other like tools or, categories of tools that are just no-brainer use cases that Ecocart sort of partners very closely with and complements from like a product or joint value proposition standpoint?
Yeah, well, loyalty is probably one of our top. In addition to that, shipping and logistics partners are big for us as well. Anything around like even returns partners, for example, right? There's a big carbon footprint, very tangible, carbon footprint that's associated with those activities and those platforms, and us being there to add value to those platforms as well and their customers is important. So that's kind of one that comes to mind, but there are just so many, right? I mean, the beauty of sustainability, right, is that there's everything that we do, us being in this call right now, has a carbon footprint associated with it, right? Even just me sitting here breathing has a carbon footprint associated with it, right? So everything that we do has that direct, tangible connection, and which therefore means there's an opportunity there, right, for a brand to extract value from that if you talk about it in the right ways, right? So all different partnership use cases are, it's a big part of our strategy.
Yep. Okay. Podcast here is called Retention Chronicles, so we've got to ask about it. Obviously, I would definitely argue that the loyalty use case does fall under the category of how Ecocart helps with retention. How do you think about retention at Ecocart? Because a lot of the use cases we kind of talked about before have been more acquisition focused. And how does what role does sort of Ecocart play in driving retention for the brands that you serve?
Yeah, it's a big topic, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned it briefly, but I think it's worth stating again. It's at the most important part of the shopping journey, the checkout experience. If you align a shopper's interest and mission with the brands, and you do that at that magical moment of the checkout of the shopping journey, not only will that consumer be more willing to make that purchase in real time, but also more willing to come back and repurchase. So we see increased repurchase rates for our shoppers that make their purchases carbon neutral for our brands. And so it increases the LTV. And that just means that it's, that's kind of the holy grail, right? Is because you can spend more to acquire that customer. You can hire more. You can do all of these incredible things with the business once that sort of LTV quantum goes up. And every lever should be being pulled, right, to increase that LTV metric. And Ecocart and general sustainability messaging is critical in that endeavor, right? It's just another lever to pull to enhance and increase that LTV. So I'd say that is kind of the first and foremost area with which we help our brands with regard to retention. But also, there's some other incredible things that we can do. For example, we partner with Klaviyo to direct our brands and kind of help them set up campaigns that re-engage their consumers based off of that sustainability action that they took. And so what we can do is segment those shoppers into an affinity segment, right? And then create these email drips that re-engage that consumer back to the website and get them to repurchase, right? And so there's some really great tactical things we could do there. Also, given that consumer affinity that they've elected that to be their affinity, we can do some really exciting things, and so can the brand. Like, for example, give an update about the project that they funded, and all centered around remember this purchase you made with X brand, have that be front and center. Here is the update to the project. You're a rock star. Keep doing that work, because it's incredibly important to our world around us, right? And having that all be wrapped in around the brand specifically, right? Increases that touch point, brings them back to the site, thinks, you know what, yeah, I do need that pair of socks again, like that I bought, a year ago, because they're super comfy. And so then they come back and repurchase. There's a lot of really great tactical and strategic ways to even lean further into that retention and LTV element.
Those are awesome tactical examples. Appreciate you diving in. And also kind of validates the use case that we were talking about, Dane, on the Malomo order tracking pages, because if we're able to send those customer attributes from Ecocart to Klaviyo, we can segment based off those alone. So like really common use case for us is splitting up subscribers and non-subscribers for subscription brands. We could do virtually the same thing, I think, here, and just provide separate experiences based on the behaviors we want to drive from each cohort, right? The environmentalist versus the non, or however you sort of quantify that.
Yeah, love it. That's great. Yeah, see, just so many use cases, and I love to hear that our wheels are already spinning here. This is good.
For sure. Okay, one of the reasons we had you on now is because Black Friday, Cyber Monday is coming up, and I would imagine maybe you have some data around this, but I would imagine it's probably one of the biggest hits on the environment throughout the entire year because of all the packages that are being shipped and all the products that are being created and put out. Are you guys, one, like, how do you think about that from your perspective? And then two, are you doing anything exciting around Black Friday, Cyber Monday to sort of incentivize brands to think about their impact over the holidays and the crazy shopping time, or any sort of like cool campaigns? Just curious to get your thoughts given the timing here.
Yeah, we certainly are. So we, like you mentioned, Black Friday, Cyber Monday is a huge shopping time, which means, there's the unfortunate reality that there is an impact to the environment, but it also means that's a huge opportunity, right? So for brands specifically. And what we do, I'll say two things. One of which, we are doing this kind of new campaign right now where we are giving our brands that partner with us in advance of Black Friday, Cyber Monday 2023, we're giving them a co-marketing budget. And that is, a calculated dollar amount that's based off of their volume. And it could be anywhere from, thousands of dollars up to $100,000 plus, depending on what your volume is, right? And so what we have had done in the past is some really clever things. We partner with LSKD, a huge athletic, athleisure wear company based in Australia and growing all around the world, gave them an amount of money for any thing that they wanted to do, any initiative that they decided to do in collaboration with us, kind of brainstorm this together, is purchase a Tesla and give it away to their shoppers in a giveaway style. And not only did this drive incredible customer acquisition, because by making a purchase and making your order carbon neutral, you're entered to win that giveaway. Of course, increased acquisition because everyone wants a Tesla, and also drove some incredible brand affinity, right? And those consumers came back and repurchased at a higher rate than those that were even before the giveaway started, right? Because of such a huge brand affinity booster and customer loyalty booster. So we're doing this campaign for brands this year in advance of Black Friday. And then we also, every year, we kind of dub it internally Green Friday. And what we do is we partner with our brands, and in many cases will offset all of their emissions for their entire Black Friday, Cyber Monday on us. So we're covering that cost. It's simply to spread awareness that commerce can be a force for good. And what a lot of brands do is take advantage of this, because they should, and they'll run like paid social media ads that center around Green Friday, shop with X brand, and your order will be carbon neutral, for example. And it drives some incredible results, right? Like way more than you'd even really expect in comparison to a 50% off sale or whatever that looks like. So there's some really great things that we're doing, both with the co-marketing campaign and budget, which is just cash that we're giving to our brands, and as well, putting our money where our mouth is and covering the cost of offsetting emissions on behalf of our brands so they can make a big splash about that. So again, yes, there's a ton of, amazing, activity that's happening within the e-commerce world and space, which has an unfortunate reality and impact to our environment, but it's a huge opportunity. And that's kind of where we come into play to partner with these brands.
Amazing. I thought you'd probably have something up your sleeve that is, is certainly going above and beyond. I'm sure that there will be like brands who are listening to this who will want to take advantage. So are there any requirements from them? Like, for example, with the marketing budget, like, does that only apply to new customers of Ecocart or like certain types? And then for the other one, like anything else that merchants should know ahead of time?
Yeah, no. So there's really minimal requirements here. I mean, you can obviously new partners of ours, new e-commerce brands, but even existing e-commerce brands can be eligible for this as well. And our team, our success team is having tons of conversations. I mean, this is like buzzing around the office right now internally, is like how can we make all of this happen for all these brands and all the interest and the demand that we're seeing. So new brands, existing brands already partner with us and everything. So it is something that we're really excited to make a big splash with this BFCM.
Very cool, man. Love how you always think outside the box. Mariah, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. Do you like highlight those brands that are doing really cool initiatives like on your company page or like anywhere else? Because I imagine like me sitting here, I'm like, oh, that would be so cool just to see all of that. Like you mentioned you all are doing the Green Fridays in which like you're covering that and then the brand runs ads around that. But is there also that like that sharing on your side where it's like, oh, look at all these cool initiatives, brands of ours that we're partnering with are running these discounts or these promos or whatever they are?
Yeah. So it turns out that consumers that get introduced to Ecocart by shopping on their favorite brands, they want to keep doing that, right? And so they actually find us, whether it be on social or on our email lists, and they follow along, and they're really, really interested and really engaged. And so we'll actually highlight these brands directly through those channels in an effort to enhance the kind of top of the funnel acquisition that we can do for our brand. So we do all that we can. We just lay out to make our brands get as much value as possible. And, and that usually just makes for a really happy e-commerce brand.
Love it.
Awesome. Okay. Coming to the end here, Dane, this has been incredible. Lots of great tactical stuff here as well. And super educational for me because it's always good to sort of get the refresher on everything you guys are doing and the impact that you're having. So multi-time founder, I think we're around the same age. So it's always, humbling when I talk to people. What's one tip or trick or resource that you've sort of been guided by through your awesome career so far?
Wow. It's a good question. I've always just been kind of guided by the idea of just giving everything my all, whatever it may be, right? If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. And I kind of live by that in a lot of ways. And so I'm in general a very passionate individual. And, that just kind of shows through with like everything that I do. And it's, I think it makes for a really fulfilling life, I think, in general. So I love the fact that I somehow I don't know, it's ingrained in my brain somehow. And I like being guided by that principle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great one we haven't heard. And for what it's worth, every time we've seen each other in person, I've seen that kind of show through. you're always super energetic and positive, and it's contagious, man. So I appreciate those moments, and maybe we'll get another one here in LA this week.
There we go. Sounds like a plan. I appreciate the compliments. It's really good to hear from you and the entire Maloma team, which is, you know, one of my favorite partners we work with. So I appreciate that.
Of course. Dane, thank you so much, man. Again, maybe see you this week, but until the next time, really appreciate you stopping by. And Mariah, thank you for all that you do as well.
Oh, thank you. I'll be jealous if you guys get to meet up in LA for sure, but I'll cross my fingers that somewhere in the future, maybe Vegas again next year.
There we go.
We'll send pics.
There we go. Oh yeah, that always makes you feel better. Love it. Thanks, Dane.
Thanks, Steve. Talk soon.